welcome back to the Healing You Show. This is episode 16 with our host Gloria, Lybecker, and I'm your co-host Vanessa. And today we're looking at, it's a bit of a follow-on from last week's topic, at self-care and exploring why that's important and what that is.
Yeah.
I actually found that as an unusual term when I first came across that concept when you introduced it to me, self-care. So maybe we could start with you explaining, well, what do we mean by that, self-care?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so when you think about taking care of somebody, that's one way we can start to explore. You know, when you have a little child, how do you take care of the child? How do you make sure they have all of their developmental needs met? So in the perfect world, you know, then that would include mind, body, and spirit, the whole sense of self for that child to grow and not just survive life, but actually thrive in life, to be recognized and nurtured in that growth and development. And then what actually happens in a lot of life is we get out on our own and we haven't actually been taught by being accompanied by another person how to take care of ourselves. Some basic things, we might know how to brush our teeth and wash our hair and do our laundry, and maybe we learn how to cook. So there's all different types of things that we can learn when we have a relationship with somebody that it's safe to learn. One of the things I see that is dropped quite often is the emotional intelligence piece. For people to know that it's safe and it's actually important to be able to talk about how we feel about life or how we feel about situations and experiences that we have in order to be able to make sense of it, or being able to even know how to receive our body's wisdom. How to even know that if I get a gut instinct on something, that it's important to pay attention to that. Or if there's a heartache that's going on, what's inside of that, and unpack that. And that is what I've found is not as common in our culture, to be able to have the freedom to have those conversations and to develop our capacity to tune in to the different frequencies of emotion and motivation that actually run our whole system. So what can happen is that can be unconscious, and then we're going through life on autopilot and not really in choice at all.
And so what I heard you there saying is tuning in. What really stood out to me was a tuning in to the different emotions. So this emotional self-care is the thing that we often get missed. It gets missed, and especially in our culture. And I was having a little giggle to myself there, actually, because I still remember my husband saying to me when we first met, he would say, "Oh, yeah, I only knew two feelings, good and shit." It wasn't even good and bad, or, you know, other people would say angry. It wasn't even angry. You know, a lot of people's favorite ones are sad, mad, or glad, you know, like those three basics, but it was just those two-dimensional sort of things. So is it uncommon for people? How do they learn this self-care? What even would be the importance, like, for them to do that and tune in to themselves?
Well, if we haven't had the experience, we don't even know it's possible. And so being able to begin to have an experience of, I remember one of the first times that I had the experience where I was searching so desperately to find resources to help me with my youngest child, because there was a lot of limbic burst that he had, and it was foreign to me to know how to engage with this and not to judge him or make him wrong. And so that's when I found nonviolent communication. And I was going to go to their family camp. And the lady that I was talking to, I remember sitting, it was at my husband's construction business, and I was in the office there, and there's a concrete floor, and I was sitting down and staring at that concrete floor I don't even remember what it was I said that I was struggling with, and this woman's listening, and she made an empathy guess for me, and time stood still. I could feel that in every fiber of my body, and I'm like, what just happened? It's because it was like my fear and my panic and the whole cluster was caught with such softness and gentleness and exquisite warmth that I was like, oh my God, yes, I've got to go to this camp. I need to soak that up. I need more of that because I hadn't had that experience like that. And there's something when you have resonant warmth that meets you right where you are in the emotion that connects it to the beauty of the need or the value, the sacred value underneath that. It actually changes us, changes the DNA at a cellular level. And there's no going back as far as I'm concerned. It's like, bring it on. I want to learn this language. I want to embody that. And I want to be able to engage with others, with everybody. I want to have that heart connection first and foremost, because it transforms everything else.
Yes, I can relate. I can relate to your story about that first time of really receiving that empathy and just really feeling gotten, and then the amazing shift that comes from that. And then that was making me tune into, like, it was like that sense of I want more of this. So your experience was I want to go on this family camp. I need that. I need more of that. And I had the same experience. I want more of that. I want to, it was like I was like, I want to tune in. I want to tune in. And then there wasn't always, in every moment, someone else available to tune in for me. So then being able to learn to tune into myself was just such a gift. The other thing I was just thinking of when you were explaining that was that if people don't have that self-care or that awareness available to them, what are the other behaviours that they're doing, that they're reaching in, trying to fill that void? They're maladaptive strategies, I guess people call them, for self-care, or self-nurturing, or self-soothing.
Well, that can take many different forms. We can distract ourselves quite well. We can get super busy. We can be very task-oriented. We can play lots of video games or just games. We can become really obsessive about stuff. I mean, so those adaptations can show up in many forms. We might want to go shopping a lot. We want to buy a lot of things. Maybe we would turn to wanting to drink more alcohol or even taking drugs, because many times when we don't know how to tune in and to actually be felt authentically, then there's a whole bunch of layers underneath inside of us that haven't been acknowledged. And so one way that I phrase that is, we develop the capacity to be who we really are not. And we think that's who we're supposed to be, is this person that we're not. It's not really us, but that's what we think we're supposed to be. And when we are able to allow ourselves to actually be known by somebody from our heart, that's vulnerable. And that can feel super scary to allow somebody to really know you. Because I know my story was, nobody would like me if they knew who I really was. And it's not true. And I've learned to like myself. And that was quite a journey in and of itself. But there was a lot of things that were imprinted or programmed into me by my experiences. I was molded and shaped by the environment. And that's possible to unpack that and clear it out, and then actually build your own strong foundation of your own sacred values that you don't have to adopt from anybody else.
Wow, so what I was just hearing you describe there with this clearing out and unpacking that, and is like because I got a visual when you said that, and I'm imagining, like, you know, clearing out the car or the house or the garage. And I know there's been this craze of people doing all this decluttering and things, but it's kind of like a self-maintenance.
Yes.
Where we spend money maintaining our cars and other machinery and our homes, but then we don't spend time or energy or thought of actually maintaining ourselves. So people will go to the gym or go for a walk or do physical things, but there's this emotional side that also needs clearing and maintaining. That's what I was getting present when you were describing that, and that's a form of self-care.
Definitely. And there's several different modalities that people can be attracted to different ones depending on personal preferences. There's a lot of energy work that can be supportive, energy healing, energy psychology. There's several different forms of that. I like intuitive tapping is quite helpful, or even using the emotion code. But it's something that allows you to, I prefer to use somatic-based processes and really develop a language to describe sensations and then the feelings or the emotions, and then expanding it out to needs and values. And we all share all of those, but there's different times that different ones will rise or fall away, depending on our own experience of life.
So that word you used before, somatic. I know that when I use that word, sometimes people don't understand what I'm talking about. So I'm wondering if we could just explore what that means, because I've found that tuning into the body really powerful when you when I do it with myself or when you've done it with me. But what does that mean, that somatic?
Well, it means that you slow down, and the soma is the body. So it's actually, and many people, if they haven't ever practiced this or been supported with this, don't know how to tune into their body. So it's like even taking a moment and noticing that you have a body. Because a lot of people, they're up in their mind so much, they're not thinking about the body other than whether they got it dressed the way they wanted to get it dressed, or that the body is only there to get them from destination A to destination B. And so to slow down and actually begin to notice sensations, because you notice even where you're breathing. Are you breathing just shallow, just up in your throat? Or do you breathe, does it come into your lungs? Or do you breathe like a baby, and can you breathe all the way and let your belly extend as you breathe? Because that's really lets your body feel safe when you can breathe all the way down into your belly and actually feel that. So even being able to, can you feel your heartbeat? Can you feel your chair under your seat? Or can you feel the floor under your feet, the ground? Those can all ground you and actually begin to have you be in your body. When you're outside, maybe you can feel the air on your face. Can you feel your shirt on your arm? You just begin to notice what sensations. When people have had trauma, Peter Levine recommends doing things like taking a shower and having the water, and just name, the shower's hitting my back, that's my back. And then turning, the water's hitting my shoulder, my right shoulder. And it's a way to start to reclaim our body. Because our body actually, it holds all of our memories at a cellular level. We have two forms of memory, implicit and explicit. And if we flip our lid, then it gets shunted into the body and it's there until it's safe for it to ever emerge. So when we learn how to listen to our body, it actually helps us to remember who we are.
So what I'm hearing there and what comes up is that it's actually a two-way process in terms of there's listening to the body. If I've got pain in my body, what is that pain about? Is that something trapped in there? And I've done that in the past where I tune in. But also when I have a feeling or emotion that sometimes I can name, but then where am I feeling that? emotion in my body and tuning into where that's actually showing up inside of me. And I think one of the questions that's coming up for me now is, so when I have the experience of feeling hurt or upset now, which I never used to have, because I used to be that person in my head and disconnected from my body until my body was screaming at me and I was in so much pain I could hardly move. It was like I would just think up here, disconnect here. But then I also would experience feeling emotions in my front. And when I talk to people about that, they go, I don't know what you mean. Like I was a bit nutty. And now I actually, if I feel hurt, different kinds of hurt, but sometimes I feel like someone's got their hand on my heart and they're squeezing. It actually feels like there's a visceral, like it's a physical pain, but it's very specific that I find relating to emotions. So how do we self-care in those moments when we're feeling these emotions or this pain, or we are trying to tune in and may not even have a word?
Well, yeah, we don't have to have a word. Words can be supportive. And yet, when we are able to place our attention on our body, where we feel the sensations, whatever they may be, we don't try to change them, we witness them. So it's an act of witnessing with warmth. And if that's all you have, it's just imagining like a little sunshine shining on that area, like if it is your heart, just being with it, allowing it, and then noticing what happens as you notice it and allow it. So it's just paying attention as it unfolds. And it begins to, then you'll notice now it's moved or it's changed or now it's softened. Or maybe it gets a little tighter before it begins to soften. But everything is energy and information flow. And when we're breathing and paying attention to it, we can start to notice our own inner rhythm as it begins to melt away. There's one experience that I found really helpful when I would be having a really difficult day, and I would be having so much pain and grief and just at my wit's end on knowing what to do. I can remember going out on a rainy day and standing in my barn and just crying because I was just so tuckered out. And what I would do is I would have my body one direction and I would just let myself feel as tight and as crappy as I did. And I would just let it be as hard as it felt. And then I would turn the other direction and then I would just relax and just imagine it just dropping away as best I could and noticing what that was like. And then I'd go back and I'd let it just be as hard as it was hard. And I would just keep going then back to let it dropping away. And I would just move back and forth. And then all of a sudden I realized I got my body stopped in the center and I was like, it felt complete. And it was a deep restoration and there were no words. It was all about letting it be as sticky as it is and letting it fall away as best it could. And then back and forth and then seeing where it would go. And there was something about the rain outside that I think really supported that process because water is representative of emotion. And I just let it flow. And I didn't need to worry about anyone hearing me. But it was a very, very somatic, very body-based, just following the sensation and being with the emotion and allowing it to run its course instead of stuffing it inside and burying it and trying to fix it or do something to it.
Or shove some chocolate cake over the top of it.
Exactly.
So what I'm hearing there is that you took time and space away for you. And I hear people sometimes react when I talk about self-care, that it's self and it's self-centeredness or it's selfish or I can't take time for me because I've got to look after everyone else in my family. And, you just walked out into the barn and what about all the things that you needed to be doing or your family? You've got to get dinner ready. So how does your self-care affect other people?
Well, when I don't attend to my self-care, it affects them in the way that I'm not grounded in my values so much. So I'm not going to be as available or as resourced to them. I might be more short-tempered. I might be more distractible. I might be just really tired and not available, not as energized. When I take time for self-care, and also I'm incongruent, because if I'm wanting to model, especially for my children and my family, I want to model health and wellness. And so unless I'm actually practicing what I'm teaching, I'm incongruent. And so really slowing down, and I know with my older children, I had the family motto was, we treat one another with kindness and respect. That was the simple thing. And when we're unable to treat one another with kindness and respect, we're certainly not going to take it out of the house. And so we would practice that. And it starts with ourselves. I need to treat myself with kindness and respect as well. I matter. And so when I make a rupture, when I show up incongruently, then I'm going to come back in and I'm going to do a repair or a rewind or a redo. I've called them all the different things. And I'm going to come in, I'm going to own it, but I'm going to do it in such a way that I'm taking responsibility for my own feelings, my own thoughts, my own actions, and checking in how that was for the other people, how it was for them to experience that. And what would they like me to hear, how that was for them, and to empathize with them. But until I take the time to be with myself and make the repair in myself first, I'm not able to go to that person to make the repair with them. And so
your self-empathy is really, your self-empathy and self-care is really actually in service of others. It's enabling you to then be able to, I guess the thing that I think about what you're describing is fitting your own oxygen mask on the airplane. They say don't try and put it on someone else, put your oxygen mask on you first, and then that will allow you to stay oxygenated to be able to then put it on. Otherwise you're just going to pass out and no one's going to get their oxygen mask.
Exactly. Well, so the power of empathy is it only takes one person to begin it. And then it changes every relationship then with that person. So when I embody that and I take the time to pay attention to what my own needs are, that is actually resourcing me, and it's revitalizing me and empowering me to be able to contribute more in the lives of those that I care for.
And when you talk about tuning into needs and taking care of what my needs are, sometimes I find that a little confronting when I'm doing self-empathy or I'm tuning into myself and my understanding my self-care, because my needs are really big and then some of them are not being met. And sometimes they can't be met in that moment.
Well, I'd like to slow that down right there. And just hear that part that says they just can't be met in this moment. And just noticing what happens in the body right there. I noticed for myself there was like a lump almost in my stomach. Because my experience, when I slow down and take the time to be with that need, especially the one that feels like it cannot be met in this moment, and really tune into what that need is and feel that in my body and stay with it, there's something right there that begins to resource inside, that begins to restore the pathway to the beauty of that need, that nothing can separate us from the beauty of the need except ourself. When we disconnect and we say it can't be met, well, then I guess it won't be today because I'm not willing to allow it. And when I'm willing to allow it, there's something that allowing is an opening and an expansion. It can't happen is a contraction, a resistance. It's a struggle, it's a strife. But when we allow what is, that's where the magic of healing happens.
I love hearing that, because that's my experience, is that when I truly sink in and acknowledge that need, the acknowledgement in itself somehow starts to let that need unfold, and it's almost being met just through being acknowledged.
Yeah. And I do believe that I am responsible for my own feelings and needs. Others can contribute towards them. And yet, that is my responsibility. When I am being self-responsible and attending to my needs for self-care, then I'm willing to take the time to become resourced. And when I need to, I'm going to reach out and I'm going to call you up and say, Vanessa, can you give me some empathy? I'm going to ask for the support that I need. And I don't have to be attached that it must be Vanessa. I can also call Ruth. I could call Rhoda. I could call Glenn. I mean, there's so many different people that we have in our lives. When we're willing to allow ourselves to receive, and that can be a big hurdle, to learn how to trust that it's possible to receive. So just to take our time with it.
And so that first step for self-care and learning to receive, for me was in experiencing, and that was in experiencing the circles that I did with you at that first parenting circle. I had attended to my self-care a lot with physical things, and done a lot of other counselling and self-exploration and personal development and education and things, but I don't really feel like my personal journey for getting that genuine need met for care and that modelling came until I actually did that work. So I guess that's really meaningful to me, and I really do want that to be shared with as many people. So how would someone else access that if they were looking for that kind of support or the ability to start the process of learning how to care for themselves?
Yeah. Well, actually, I've just recently launched a free course. So on my website, people could go to healingyousanctuary.com, and there's a free course on this website that you can begin to access that will start to walk you through the different skill sets and the mindsets and the principles and some powerful strategies that we can use to begin to empower ourselves, to begin to learn how to be kind and respect ourselves. And also, if people would like, they can also schedule a free consultation and have a personal exploration for 30 minutes to see what might best suit them. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, this has been a really lovely exploration. I've enjoyed it very much. I look forward to our next conversation.
Thank you. I'll see you next week.